Thanks for visit my True Gay Stories channel. Have you ever had that one moment, that single crystalline moment when everything you thought you knew about your life just shifted, when the ground beneath your feet transformed into something unfamiliar, terrifying, and impossibly beautiful all at once? For me, that moment came on a Tuesday night. In October, in our cramped apartment that smelled like burnt coffee and old books, when my roommate Oliver fell asleep on my shoulder during a thunderstorm. This is the story of how I learned that love doesn't ask permission. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment or the right circumstances. Sometimes love just happens, Grayson, complicated and absolutely worth it. This is our story. This is how everything changed. The thing about living with your best friend is that you start to notice things, small things, the way Oliver hummed off key while making breakfast, how he always left exactly 3 inches of coffee in the pot because he swore the last bit tasted burnt, the constellation of freckles across his shoulders that I definitely shouldn't have been cataloging. Every time he walked from the bathroom to his bedroom in just a towel I'd been in love with. My roommate for exactly 4 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. Not that I was counting. We'd met 2 years ago during freshman orientation at Portland State, bonding over our shared hatred of icebreaker games and our mutual love of terrible horror movies. Oliver was studying architecture, all creative passion and late-night drafting sessions, while I buried myself in computer science, finding comfort in problems that had definite solutions, unlike, say, being hopelessly in love with your straight roommate because Oliver was straight, definitely completely girls only straight. He'd had a girlfriend for most of sophomore year, Emily, who was perfectly nice and perfectly wrong for him, though I'd never said so. They'd broken up last spring, and since then Oliver had been on a handful of dates with women from his classes, always coming home with that slightly disappointed look that I'd learned not to ask about, and I was out had been since high school. My parents knew, my friends knew, Oliver knew. It had never been a big deal between us, just another fact about me. Like my coffee addiction or my inability to fold fitted sheets, Oliver was one of those effortlessly accepting people, the kind who'd casually mentioned his lesbian aunt at our first dinner together, and meant it as solidarity, not virtue signal, which somehow made everything worse. October in Portland meant rain, constant drumming, gray sky rain that turned the city into something moody and introspective. Our apartment, a third-floor walk-up with questionable heating and windows that rattled in strong winds, became a cocoon against the weather. We'd established rituals: Tuesday movie nights, Sunday morning pancakes, Thursday evenings, when we'd both work in companionable silence at the kitchen table, my code filling one screen while his architectural renderings filled another. It was a Tuesday when everything started to shift. Movie night, Oliver announced, bursting through the door with his backpack dripping rain onto our already questionable carpet. His dark hair was plastered to his forehead, and his jean jacket, the one I'd told him wasn't waterproof about 100 times, was soaked through. And before you say anything, yes, I know the jacket isn't waterproof. I keep forgetting. I looked up from my laptop, fighting the smile that always seemed to surface around him. One day you'll listen to me. One day you'll stop being right about everything. Until then, we're at an impasse. He grinned, that crooked smile that did absolutely nothing to my heart rate. Nothing at all. I'm thinking horror, something terrible. The terrible ones are the best ones, exactly. He disappeared into his room, emerging 5 minutes later in the gray sweatpants and faded college t-shirt that constituted his home uniform. I deliberately did not notice how the shirt had shrunk slightly in the wash, pulling across his shoulders. I'm making popcorn. Extra butter, is that even a question? While Oliver clattered around in our kitchen, barely larger than a closet, I set up the movie. We'd been working through a list of horror B movies, rating them on a scale of so bad it's good to so bad we want our time back. Tonight's selection: Vampire Sorority Girls from Hell, which promised to be spectacularly awful. The thing about our Tuesday nights was that they developed a certain geography. We'd started out on opposite ends of our second-hand couch, a respectable distance between us, but gradually over months of movies that distance had shrunk. Now we had our spots, Oliver on the left, me on the right, with maybe a foot of space between us, close enough that I could feel his warmth, close enough that when he laughed I felt it, close enough to be torture. Okay, Oliver said, settling onto the couch with a bowl of popcorn that he immediately placed between us. I'm predicting this movie has at least 3 nonsensical plot twists and one scene where someone runs upstairs instead of out the front door. Safe bet. I'm going with 5 gratuitous bikini scenes that have nothing to do with vampires or sororities. Oh, we're doing this. His eyes lit up competitively. Loser does dishes for a week. You're on. The movie started and it was immediately gloriously terrible. The acting was wooden. The special effects looked like someone's first attempt at iMovie, and the plot made absolutely no sense. We kept our running commentary going, tallying our predictions, laughing at the absurdity of it all. Somewhere around the 40-minute mark, the weather outside intensified. What had been steady rain became a full thunderstorm, the kind Portland got occasionally in fall, dramatic, violent, and oddly cause when you were inside. Lightning flashed through our windows, followed by thunder that rattled the glass. Jesus, Oliver muttered, glancing toward the window. That's close. Scared, I teased, of this storm. No, of our windows finally giving up and shattering. Maybe another crack of thunder and the lights flickered. We both froze. If the power goes out, we're not going to know who wins the bet, Oliver pointed out. Then I guess we'll both have to do dishes. Or neither of us. That's not how it works, isn't it, though? The power stayed on, but the storm seemed to settle something in the air between us. Oliver shifted on the couch, angling himself slightly more toward me, not obviously, just incrementally. The bowl of popcorn between us became an obstacle, and without discussing it, he moved it to the coffee table. Now there was nothing between us but air and possibility in my pounding heart. I tried to focus on the movie. I really did, but I was hyper-aware of every movement Oliver made. The way he stretched his legs out, his knee almost brushing mine. How he ran his hand through his still damp hair, leaving it sticking up adorably. The soft, unconscious sounds he made when something on screen amused him. This is the worst movie we've ever watched, he said, but he sounded content. Happy. The worst. We're definitely watching the sequel. There's a sequel. Oh, there are 3 sequels. I checked. I laughed, shaking my head. What's wrong with us? Excellent taste in terrible entertainment, Oliver said confidently, then more quietly. I don't know, I like this though. These nights. He trailed off, and I held my breath, waiting. It's easy, you know. Everything else is complicated, but this is easy. I didn't trust myself to respond because nothing about this was easy for me. Sitting this close to him, wanting things I couldn't have, pretending my heart didn't stutter every time he smiled at me. None of that was easy, but for him it was, and that's what mattered, right? That's what being a good friend meant. The movie continued its descent into nonsense. On screen, Vampire Sorority Girls were having an inexplicable beach party. Another boom of thunder shook the apartment closer. This time, and Oliver flinched slightly. Not scared, huh? I teased gently. Startled. There's a difference. Sure there is, he insisted, but he was smiling. Then, in a movement that stopped my breath entirely, he shifted closer, just a few inches, close enough that our shoulders were almost touching. This okay? It wasn't okay, it was the opposite of okay. It was everything I wanted and nothing I could actually have. Yeah, I managed, of course. We watched the rest of the movie like that. Not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel his presence like a physical thing. Close enough that when he laughed, the vibration traveled through the small space between us. Close enough that I had to remind myself to breathe normally, to not give anything away, to be the friend he needed me to be. The credits rolled eventually. Oliver stretched his arm, briefly brushing mine, and I felt that touch like electricity. Okay, final tally, he said, reaching for the remote. I count 2 nonsensical plot twists. 2. What about when the head vampire turned out to be the dean's daughter's roommate's ex-boyfriend's cousin? That's 1 twist. That's 3 twists pretending to be 1 twist. He laughed. That full genuine laugh that I loved. Fine, 3 twists, but I definitely got the bikini count right. 5 scenes. 1 of those was a pool party, not a bikini scene. Bikinis were present, therefore. Bikini scene. That logic is deeply flawed. That logic is victorious. He grinned at me triumphantly. I win. You have dishes for a week. We'll see. About that I countered, but I was smiling too. This was us. This easy banter, this comfortable space we'd built together. This thing that was both everything and not nearly enough. Outside, the storm continued to rage. Inside, Oliver stood and stretched again, his shirt riding up slightly to reveal a strip of stomach that I definitely did not notice. I should probably try to sleep through this, he said, gesturing toward the window where rain lashed against the glass. Early class tomorrow. Yeah, I said, even though I didn't want the night to end. These moments were what I lived for. These ordinary, perfect moments that I hoarded like treasure. Good night, Oliver. He paused at his bedroom door, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hey, Alex. My heart jumped. Yeah, thanks for this, for he waved his hand vaguely. You know, being you. And then he was gone, his door clicking shut, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and the storm outside and the growing certainty that I couldn't keep doing this forever. Something was building between us. I felt it in the shrinking distance on the couch, in the way our easy silences had become charged with something unspoken. In moments like tonight when he looked at me, and I wondered just for a second if maybe he felt it too. But that was dangerous thinking. Oliver was my best friend, my roommate, the person I trusted most in the world. I couldn't risk that for feelings he didn't share. I wouldn't, even if those feelings were consuming me from the inside out. I cleaned up from movie night, taking my time, listening to the storm and the quiet sounds of Oliver getting ready for bed in the next room. Water running, the creak of his bed frame, the soft thump of a book being set on his nightstand. These were the sounds of my life now. This apartment, this person, this impossible situation that I'd somehow convinced myself I could sustain indefinitely. In my own room, finally staring at my ceiling while rain pounded overhead, I let myself imagine for just a moment. Imagine Oliver looking at me differently. Imagine crossing that careful distance between us. Imagine his hands, his mouth, his body. No, stop. I rolled over, pulling my pillow over my head like I could physically block out the thoughts. This was the bargain I'd made with myself. I could love him quietly, privately, as long as I never let it show, as long as I never made it his problem. I could do this. I'd been doing it for months. I just had to keep being his friend, even if it was slowly killing me. The following week passed in a strange kind of tension. Nothing had changed. We still had our routines, our easy conversations, our established rhythms. But something felt different. At least to me, Oliver seemed more tactile. He'd always been a casual toucher, a hand on my shoulder when he passed behind me in the kitchen, a playful shove when I made a terrible joke. But now those touches seemed to linger. His hand would rest on my shoulder for a beat longer than necessary. When we sat together, he'd lean in closer when showing me something on his phone, or maybe I was imagining it, seeing what I wanted to see. That was the torture of unrequited love. You started reading into every gesture, searching for meaning in meaningless moments. On Thursday, we were both working at the kitchen table. I was deep in debugging a particularly frustrating piece of code when Oliver sighed heavily. "Problem?" I asked, looking up. He was staring at his laptop screen with an expression of pure frustration. "This design isn't working, Professor. Chen wants us to incorporate sustainable elements, but every time I try to add them, the whole structure becomes aesthetically unbalanced. Can I see?" He turned his laptop toward me, and I studied his architectural rendering. Even to my untrained eye, it was beautiful, a community center with clean lines and large windows, but I could see what he meant about the imbalance. "What if," I said slowly, "instead of adding the sustainable elements, you made them central to the design? Like, what if those solar panels weren't on the roof but integrated into the walls? Or what if the rain collection system was visible, a feature, instead of something hidden?" Oliver stared at me, then at his screen, then back at me. He turned the laptop back, his fingers already flying across the trackpad. "That's actually brilliant. Why didn't I think of that?" "Because you're too close to it. Sometimes you need fresh eyes." "No," he said, still working, but with a smile playing at his lips. "Sometimes I just need your eyes." That simple sentence lodged itself in my chest like a warm stone. It was nothing, a casual compliment, but I held on to it anyway, adding it to my collection of moments I'd replay late at night. We worked in comfortable silence for a while, the sound of rain against the windows providing ambient noise. Portland's autumn was in full effect. Gray skies, constant drizzle, early darkness creeping in by 5:00. "Hey," Oliver said eventually, breaking the silence. "You doing anything Saturday?" My heart did something complicated. No, why? My friend Marcus is having a party. Kind of a Halloween thing even. Though Halloween's not for another week. Costume encouraged but not required. Want to come a party with Oliver's other friends, people from his architecture program that I'd met occasionally but didn't really know. Usually, I'd make an excuse. Social situations with strangers weren't my favorite, and watching Oliver interact with potential romantic interests was torture I generally avoided. But Oliver was looking at me with those warm brown eyes, hopeful and open, and I found myself saying, "Sure, yeah, that sounds fun." His smile was worth the lie. "Great, and don't worry about not knowing people. I'll stick with you. You don't have to do that." "I want to," he said simply. "More fun that way." Saturday arrived with unseasonably clear skies. Oliver had decided we should do a joint costume, something that made me both anxious and stupidly happy. We'd settled on a simple concept. He'd be a doctor, I'd be a patient, courtesy of an old lab coat he'd found at Goodwill and some creative fake blood. "You're sure this doesn't look too real?" I asked, examining the wound on my arm that Oliver had created with makeup from a YouTube tutorial. "It looks perfect." "Here, let me just." He leaned in close, his fingers gentle on my skin as he adjusted the fake blood. I could smell his cologne, something woody and warm, and feel his breath on my wrist. Every nerve in my body was firing there. "Now you look appropriately traumatized." "Is that the goal? Horror is in this season." He stepped back, admiring his work. "We look good. This is going to be great." Marcus lived in a house near campus that he shared with 4 other people, and by the time we arrived, the party was in full swing. Music pounded from inside, and people in various states of costume filled every room. True to his word, Oliver stayed close. He introduced me to people, included me in conversations, made sure I had a drink in my hand, and never felt abandoned. It should have been enough. His friendship, his attention, his obvious care for my comfort. But every time a girl approached him, and several did, drawn by his easy charm and the way the doctor's coat fit his frame. I felt something dark and ugly twist in my chest. Jealousy, want the bitter knowledge that I had no right to either. "You okay?" Oliver asked during a quiet moment when we'd escaped to the back porch for air. The night was cool but pleasant, and the noise from inside was muffled enough to actually hold a conversation. "Yeah, fine. Why? You seem I don't know. Somewhere else." He was watching me with that focused attention he sometimes had. Like I was a design problem he was trying to solve. "Just tired," I lied. "Long week. We can leave if you want." "No, you're having fun. We should stay. I'd have more fun if you were having fun," he said. And there was something in his voice, something soft and genuine, that made my chest ache. Before I could respond, the door opened and two people stumbled out, laughing and very much in their own world. They barely noticed us as they claimed the other end of the porch, immediately falling into the kind of kiss that probably should have come with a privacy warning. Oliver and I exchanged amused looks, then tacitly agreed to head back inside. But as we passed the couple, now thoroughly entangled, Oliver's hand found the small of my back, guiding me past them. It was a protective gesture, almost possessive, and it sent electricity racing up my spine. His hand stayed there longer than necessary, long enough that it couldn't be accidental. We ended up leaving around midnight. Oliver had drunk just enough that he was loose and happy, smiling at everything. His usual reservations dissolved. I'd stayed mostly sober, comfortable in my role as the reliable one. "That was good," Oliver announced as we walked back to our apartment. The streets were quiet, just us and the street lights and the distant sound of traffic. "I'm glad you came." Yeah, he bumped his shoulder against mine. "Everything's better when you're there." "You're drunk," I said, trying to make it light, trying not to read into it. "I'm happy," he corrected. "There's a difference." He was quiet for a moment, then, "Can I tell you something?" My heart was suddenly pounding. "Of course, Emily. You remember Emily," she said. "Something when we broke up," said I was. He paused like he was trying to remember the exact words. "Emotionally unavailable." Said I never really let her in and I didn't get it then, but I think I do now. "What do you mean?" "I think I was comparing her to something too. Someone to a standard she couldn't meet." He looked over at me, and even in the dim light I could see something conflicted in his expression. "Does that make sense?" I guess I managed my mouth dry. "Who are you comparing her to?" He opened his mouth, closed it, shook his head. "I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know." We walked the rest of the way in silence that felt heavy with unspoken things. Back at the apartment, Oliver headed immediately for the bathroom, while I shed my costume and changed into comfortable clothes. By the time he emerged, I was on the couch trying to decompress, trying not to obsess over every word of that conversation. "Movie?" Oliver asked, already heading for his own room to change. "It's late." "Quick one. I'm not tired yet." He returned in his usual sweats and t-shirt, but instead of sitting in his normal spot, he sat right next to me. Right next to me, his thigh pressed against mine, his shoulder touching mine, no pretense of distance. "This okay?" he asked quietly. "No, yes, I don't know." "Yeah, we put on something mindless, a comedy we'd both seen before, but I wasn't watching. I was intensely, overwhelmingly aware of every point where our bodies touched, the warmth of him, the rise and fall of his breathing, the way he relaxed into the couch into me like this was natural. Halfway through the movie, during a particularly boring scene, Oliver spoke. "Alex H., can I ask you something?" "Sure." "When you came out, how did you know?" "Like, how did you know for sure?" I went very still. We'd never talked about this. Not really. Not beyond the surface level acknowledgement of my sexuality. "I mean," he continued, "was it just always obvious, or was there a moment when you realized?" "Both," I said carefully. "There were signs I ignored for a long time. But there was also a moment, a specific moment, when I couldn't pretend anymore. When I had to admit what I'd known all along. What was the moment? I thought about. Lying, but Oliver's voice was so genuine, so searching, and we were sitting in the dark with just the TV's glow, and the walls I'd built around this secret were crumbling. I was 16. I said there was this guy in my class, and he smiled at me one day. Just a normal, friendly smile, and I felt it everywhere in my chest, my stomach, my fingertips. And I knew what it meant, what I'd been avoiding admitting, that this was who I was. Oliver was quiet. Then were you scared, terrified, but you told people anyway eventually, it felt. Worse to hide than to be honest. I glanced at him. Why are you asking? He was staring at the TV, but I didn't think he was seeing it. His jaw was tight, like he was working through something difficult. Just curious, he said finally. We fell back into silence, but it was different now, charged like we'd stepped up to the edge of something and were both looking down, trying to decide whether to jump. The movie ended. I should have said good night, gone to my room, maintained the boundaries that kept us both safe. But I didn't move. And neither did Oliver. It's still raining, he observed, though it was barely a drizzle now. Yeah, I like the sound. Me too. Another silence. Then Oliver shifted, turning slightly toward me. In the dim light from the TV screensaver, I could just make out his expression, uncertain, vulnerable. Searching. Alex, I thunder cracked, sudden and violent and close enough to rattle the windows. We both jumped, and then Oliver was laughing, embarrassed. Jesus. Okay. Apparently Portland wants me to go to bed. Subtle, I agreed, but my voice sounded strained even to my own ears. Oliver stood stretching. He looked down at me, opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then closed it. Good night, Alex, good night. He made it 3 steps toward his room before stopping, turning back, and in that moment I saw it. The same war I'd been fighting playing out across his features. Fear and want and confusion, and something that looked almost desperate. Oliver, my voice was barely a whisper. He came back, sat down on the coffee table, directly in front of me. So we were knee to knee, eye to eye. This close, I could count his eyelashes, see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, map every uncertainty on his face. I think he said slowly, I've been lying to myself about something. My heart was going to beat out of my chest. What? I don't know how to say it. I don't know if I should say it, because what if? He stopped, took a breath. What if saying it ruins everything? What if admitting what I'm feeling destroys the best thing in my life? Oliver, I didn't recognize my own voice. What are you feeling? His eyes met mine, and I saw everything I'd been hiding reflected back at me. All the longing, the fear, the impossible hope. I think you know, he whispered. The world narrowed to this. His eyes, his proximity, the thundering of my heart. The moment balanced on a knife's edge. Tell me anyway, I breathed. He leaned closer, so close I could feel his breath on my lips. So close that if either of us moved even an inch, we'd be crossing a line we could never uncross. I think I'm falling for you, Oliver said. I think I've been falling for a while, and I'm terrified. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I can't pretend anymore. I can't sit next to you and act like I don't want. I didn't let him finish. I closed the distance between us, pressing my lips to his in a kiss that felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff simultaneously. For a heartbeat, he froze, and I thought I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Then he was kissing me back. His hands came up to frame my face, and he kissed me like he'd been drowning and I was air. Desperate and tender and real, we broke apart only when breathing became necessary. Oliver rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed, his breathing ragged. Holy, he whispered. Yeah. I've wanted to do that for months, Alex, and I kept telling myself I was straight, that it was just friendship, that I was misreading my own feelings. But then you'd laugh at something, or look at me a certain way, or just exist in the same room as me, and I'd think. He opened his eyes, and they were bright with emotion. I'd think I'd never wanted anything as much as I wanted to kiss. You, Oliver, my voice broke on his name. I've been in love with you since June. June. He laughed, almost incredulous. All this time. He kissed me again, softer now, exploratory, learning the shape of my mouth, the taste of me. His hand slid into my hair and I gripped his shoulders, anchor points in a spinning world. When we finally pulled apart for real, Oliver stood and held out his hand. Come. On where? My room. Just to I want to hold you. If that's okay, I want to fall asleep with you. I've imagined it so many times, and now he laughed again. Giddy, now I actually get to. I took his hand. I woke to gray morning light, filtering through unfamiliar curtains, and the warm weight of Oliver's arm across my chest. For a moment I lay perfectly still, afraid that moving would break the spell, that I'd discover this was another one of my elaborate dreams, and I'd wake up alone in my own bed with just the ache of wanting. But Oliver shifted beside me, mumbling something unintelligible, and his arm tightened around me, and this was real, this was happening. We'd spent half the night talking. After that world-shifting kiss, we'd curled up in Oliver's bed, just holding each other, processing, trying to understand how we'd both been carrying these feelings without the other knowing. He'd told me about the growing panic he'd felt every time he saw me, the way he'd tried to date girls to prove to himself he was straight, the moment few weeks ago when he'd finally admitted to himself that whatever he felt for me went far beyond friendship. I kept thinking, he'd said, his face half hidden against my shoulder, that if I could just not name it, it wouldn't be real. Like I could keep you as my best friend and ignore everything else I was feeling. But it got harder every day. It got harder. I thought I was so careful. I'd admitted, thought I was hiding it so well. You are, I had no idea. Alex, that's what scared me most. The thought that I'd finally figured out what I wanted, and you might not want me back. Now in the soft morning light, I could study his sleeping face without restraint, the dark lashes against his cheeks, the slight parting of his lips, the vulnerable, peaceful expression that made my chest ache with tenderness. His eyes fluttered open, and for a second I saw confusion, then recognition, then a smile so bright it could have powered the whole city. Hi, he said, voice rough with sleep. Hi. This is real, right? Last night happened, unless we're having the same dream. God, I hope not. My dreams are never this good. He shifted closer, pressing a kiss to my jaw, then my cheek, then finally my lips, soft and sweet and still slightly unbelieving. How are you so perfect? I'm definitely not. You are to me. He propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at me with an expression of such open affection that I could barely breathe. I'm trying to decide if I should be freaking out right now. Are you freaking out? No, that's the weird thing. I thought I would be. I thought admitting I have feelings for a guy for you would send me into some kind of identity crisis, but I just feel right, like everything makes sense now. I reached up to trace the line of his jaw. You don't have to have it all figured out. We can take this slow. We can, Alex. He caught my hand, pressing a kiss to my palm. I don't want slow. I've wasted enough time being confused. I know what I want. His eyes were serious, intense. I want you. I want this. Whatever this is, whatever we're calling it, I'm in boyfriends. I offered tentatively. His smile could have lit up the entire apartment. Yeah, boyfriend. He tested the word, rolling it around. My boyfriend. Holy, that sounds good. We spent the morning in bed, not in any sexual way, just learning each other. Oliver was tactile in a way I'd never experienced, constantly touching, always needing contact. His hand in my hair, his fingers tracing patterns on my back, small kisses pressed to whatever part of me was closest. I have 2 years of not being able to do this to make up for, he explained when I commented on it. Let me be clingy, I'm not complaining. Around noon, hunger finally drove us from the bedroom. We made breakfast together, or rather Oliver made breakfast while I sat on the counter, watching and occasionally being fed bites of scrambled eggs. It was so domestic, so natural, like we'd been doing this forever. So Oliver said as we ate, sitting side by side at our small kitchen table, we should probably talk about logistics. Logistics like who we tell, when we tell them how we paused, looking uncertain. I'm not ashamed of this, of us. I want to be clear about that, but I'm also figuring things out about myself, and I don't know if I'm ready to come out to everyone yet. Is that okay? I took his hand, threading our fingers together. Oliver, this is your timeline. We do this at whatever pace you're comfortable with. I'm not going anywhere. Relief flooded his face. Thank you. I think I need to tell my parents eventually. They'll be fine. Surprised maybe, but fine. But I want to be sure. First, about me, about what this means for my identity. You don't have to have a label, I pointed out. Not if you don't want one, I know, but I think I want to understand myself before I try to explain myself to other people, you know. He squeezed my hand. For now, can we just be us? Tell close friends when it feels right, but otherwise keep this ours for a bit. Absolutely. He kissed me then, tasting like coffee and maple syrup, and I thought I could get very used to this. The next few weeks were a study in contrasts. In public, around people who didn't know, we were the same as always, best friends, roommates, completely platonic. But the moment we were alone, Oliver transformed. He was affectionate to the point of being insatiable, always finding excuses to touch me, kiss me, pull me close. I'm making up for lost time, he'd say, grinning against my neck. Our apartment became a sanctuary. We'd cook dinner together, Oliver wrapping his arms around me from behind while I chopped vegetables. We'd watch movies with my head on his chest, his fingers playing with my hair. We'd work at the kitchen table, but now our feet would tangle underneath, a constant connection. The physical intimacy developed gradually, naturally. We'd spend hours just kissing, learning each other, taking our time. Oliver was enthusiastic but nervous, and I loved being able to guide him, show him, watch him discover what he liked. Is it always like this? He asked one night, breathless after a particularly intense makeout session. This consuming. I think it's like this when it's right. I told him, it's so right, he breathed. Alex, this is so right. 2 weeks after that first kiss, Oliver came home from his architecture studio with a determined look on his face. I told Marcus, he announced. I looked up from my laptop. You told him about us. About me being, he paused, then smiled. About me being bi. That's what I am, I think bisexual, it feels right. I stood crossing to him. How did it go? He was great. Completely unsurprised, actually said he'd been wondering since the party because apparently I have obvious hard eyes when I look at you. He wrapped his arms around my waist, which is fair, I definitely do, I might have those too. You definitely do, I count on them daily. He kissed me softly. It felt good telling him, saying it out loud, that you're my boyfriend, that I'm bi, that this is my life now. Pride swelled in my chest. I'm proud of you, yes, so proud. Over the following weeks, Oliver slowly came out to more people. His close friends first, then his lesbian aunt, who apparently said, finally, and nothing else. Each time he came home more confident, more settled in his skin. It's weird, he said one evening while we were cooking dinner together. I spent so long being afraid of this, and now that I'm living it, I can't imagine being any other way. Like, how did I not know this about myself? Sometimes we can't see things until we're ready to see them. Deep. He hippied me playfully but accurate. We had our first fight 3 weeks in. Something stupid about dishes and responsibilities that was really about the stress of midterms and Oliver's anxiety about an upcoming presentation. We both said things we didn't mean, and I ended up sleeping in my own bed for the first time since we'd gotten together. I lay awake most of the night, staring at my ceiling, feeling the wrongness of it. Around 3:00 in the morning, my door opened. "I can't sleep without you," Oliver said. From the doorway, I tried, "I hate it, can I come in?" "Yes." He crawled into my bed immediately, pulling me close. "I'm sorry for what I said, for being and for everything. I'm sorry, too. We're going to fight sometimes," he said quietly. "But I need you to know this is forever for me, Alex. You're forever for me. One fight doesn't change that. Forever, forever." He kissed my forehead. I've never been more sure of anything. At the 1 month mark, Oliver suggested we go back to Marcus Place, the site of the party where everything had started to shift. "I want to be us there," he explained. "Publicly us, I'm ready." So we went, and this time when girls approached Oliver, he smiled and said, "I'm flattered, but I'm here with my boyfriend." And he'd look at me with such obvious affection that there was no question who he meant. The architecture students took it in stride. A few seemed surprised, but most just nodded like it made perfect sense. By the end of the night, I'd been absorbed into Oliver's friend group fully, not as his roommate or his friends plus one, but as his partner. "That wasn't so bad," Oliver said as we walked home, our hands linked between us. No, it was actually kind of amazing. Did you see Sarah's face when I introduced you as my boyfriend? She looked so happy for me. People love you, Oliver. They want you to be happy. I am happy." He stopped walking, pulling me close in the middle of the sidewalk. "I'm so happy, Alex. Sometimes I look at you and I can't believe this is my life, that I get to have this. Have you? You do. I promised you have me." November brought early snow, unusual for Portland, and our apartment's questionable heating became a nightly discussion. But it also meant more excuses to stay close, bundled together under blankets. "Silver lining to shitty heating," Oliver said, pulling me against his chest. "I get to keep you warm." My hero. Damn right, we developed new rituals. Saturday morning coffee runs where Oliver would order for both of us, his hand finding mine as we walked. Sunday evenings meal prepping together, moving around our tiny kitchen and practice synchronization. Wednesday nights that had somehow become date night, and we'd make something special for dinner, light candles, pretend we were at a fancy restaurant. "This is my favorite," Oliver said during one such Wednesday. We'd made pasta from scratch, or attempted to, and the kitchen was a disaster. But the food was good, and we were laughing being with you. Just this," I agreed. Thanksgiving approached, and with it decisions about going home to families. "Come with me," Oliver said one evening, "to my parents' house. I want them to meet you as my boyfriend." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I came out to them last week over video chat. They were surprised but supportive. Mom cried a little but good tears, and I told them about you. How long I'd been in love with you without realizing it. How happy you make me." He cupped my face gently. "They want to meet the person who makes their son smile like an idiot all the time." "I make you smile like an idiot, the biggest idiot. It's embarrassing." I kissed him. "Okay, I'll come." Yeah, his smile was pure joy. Thanksgiving week arrived, and with it a mix of nervousness and excitement. We drove to Oliver's childhood home in Seattle, a beautiful craftsman, in a tree-lined neighborhood that was exactly what I'd imagined. His parents welcomed me warmly, and if his mom's eyes were a little misty when Oliver casually put his arm around me, she didn't comment. His dad shook my hand firmly and said, "So you're the one," with a knowing smile. Over the weekend, I watched Oliver relax in a way I'd never seen. He held my hand at dinner, kissed me good night in front of his parents, introduced me to neighbors as his boyfriend without hesitation. "This is who I am," he told his mom during a quiet moment I accidentally overheard. "And I've never been happier." "I can see that, sweetheart," she replied. You light up around him. On the drive back to Portland, Oliver was quiet for a long time. Then thank you for what? For being patient with me, for giving me time to figure myself out, for not pushing, but also for being there when I was ready. He glanced at me, then back at the road. I know I was slow. I know I put you through hell. Probably those months when you had feelings and I was oblivious, Oliver. Let me finish. He smiled slightly. I'm getting to the good part. What I'm trying to say is that every moment of confusion, every second of fear, every bit of uncertainty, it was worth it because it led me to us to understanding myself. You didn't just give me love, Alex, you gave me truth. I had to look out the window, blinking back unexpected tears. I love you. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Good, scared, the best scared. Back at our apartment, our home, we settled back into routines that now included casual kisses while cooking, waking up tangled together, stolen moments of affection between classes and work. One Tuesday night in early December, exactly 2 months after everything had changed, we were back on our couch for movie night. But instead of the usual terrible horror movie, Oliver had queued up a romantic comedy. Really? I teased. What happened to our brand? Our brand is evolving, he said with mock seriousness. We contain multitudes. The movie was predictably cheesy, but halfway through, during a particularly saccharine scene, Oliver shifted to look at me. What? I asked. I'm just thinking about that night, the thunderstorm, when I almost told you how I felt, but chickened out and then told me anyway. Best decision I ever made. He traced my jawline with gentle fingers. Do you ever think about how different things could be if I'd kept quiet? If we'd both just kept pretending? Sometimes, I admitted. But then I remember what you said, that you couldn't pretend anymore. And I think that's the thing. Truth finds a way, love finds a way. Love finds a way, he repeated softly. I like that. He kissed me slowly, tenderly. You know what else I like? What? This. Us, knowing that when I wake up tomorrow you'll still be here, that we get to keep doing this, building a life together, learning each other, just existing in the same space and being stupidly happy about it. I'm very stupidly happy about it. Good. Because I have plans, Alex, long-term plans that involve you. My heart stuttered. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking after graduation we get a better apartment, one with heating that actually works, big enough for a home office for you and a drafting space for me. Maybe adopt a cat. You've mentioned wanting a cat. I have mentioned that. And then he paused, suddenly looking vulnerable. And then we just keep going, keep building this, because I want forever. With you, I know it's early and I know I'm still figuring things out about myself, but that's the one thing I'm absolutely certain about. You're my forever. I pulled him close, holding him tight, feeling the truth of his words settle into my bones. You're my forever, too. We stayed like that, wrapped up in each other while the movie played on unwatched. Outside, Portland was doing its gray, rainy thing. Inside, we had everything we needed. Hey, Alex, Oliver murmured against my neck. Remember when you said that moment you came out when you felt it everywhere? Yeah. I feel that now. Every time I look at you, every time you smile, every time we're just existing together, I feel it everywhere. That's how I know. No. What? That I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Spring transformed Portland into something almost magical. Cherry blossoms lined the streets. The rain became lighter. And our apartment, the same third floor walk-up with questionable heating, felt like home in a way it hadn't before. Oliver had finished his semester with top marks on his community-centered design, the one that had started with my suggestion months ago. He'd acknowledged me in his presentation, calling me his creative consultant and partner in all things, which had made me simultaneously proud and embarrassed. We'd been officially out as a couple for 4 months now. Oliver's Instagram featured Pictures of us, casual and happy. My desktop background was a photo from his birthday, him with cake on his nose, me laughing at him. Both of us clearly, obviously in love. It wasn't always perfect. We still fought about dishes. Oliver's tendency to leave his drafting supplies everywhere drove me crazy. My habit of getting absorbed in code and forgetting to eat worried him. But we'd learned how to fight fair, how to apologize, how to choose each other even when it was hard. On a Tuesday night, because Tuesdays were still our night, we were back on our couch. Some terrible horror movie playing, popcorn between us, everything exactly as it had been 100 Tuesdays before. Except now Oliver's head was on my shoulder, my arm was around him, and when he looked up at me with those warm brown eyes, he could kiss me without fear or hesitation. "I love our Tuesdays," he said. "Me too. Think we'll still be doing this in 10 years? God, I hope so. 20. If we're not, something has gone terribly wrong." He laughed, that full, genuine sound I never got tired of hearing. "Good, because I'm not done with you, Alex, not even close." "How close?" "Not even remotely close. You're stuck with me forever." Terrible news, I deadpanned. "The worst." "The absolute worst," he agreed, grinning. Then more seriously, "Thank you for what?" "For loving me, for being patient while I figured my out, for being the best part of my every single day." He shifted, pressing a soft kiss to my jaw. "For being my best friend and my boyfriend and my home." My chest felt too full, like my heart was expanding beyond the capacity of my ribs. "You're all that for me too. You know that, right?" "I do now." Outside, the first hints of a spring rain started pattering against our windows. Inside, we stayed exactly where we were, wrapped up in each other, in this life we'd built, in the love that had started with friendship and transformed into something neither of us could have predicted. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about dramatic gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes they're about two people who find each other in an ordinary apartment during an ordinary thunderstorm and realize that what they've been looking for has been right there all along. Sometimes love is quiet, patient, built slowly over Tuesday movie nights and Sunday morning pancakes and a thousand small moments of choosing each other. And sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, love finds you when you least expect it. When your roommate falls asleep on your shoulder, when thunder cracks overhead, when all your careful walls come tumbling down, that's when everything changes. That's when forever begins.